Over 5 million people perished in the Korean War, a conflict often overlooked in the annals of history. This was a war that erupted from the ashes of World War II, a consequence of the ideological rift between the democratic West and the communist East. The Korean peninsula, once unified, was arbitrarily divided into North and South at the 38th parallel. This division was meant to be temporary, a political expedient to manage the surrender of Japanese forces. But it rapidly solidified into a concrete barrier, split between the Soviet-backed North and the American-supported South. Two vastly different ways of life, two incompatible ideologies, forced together on a narrow strip of land. This was the powder keg that set off the Korean War, a conflict that raged from 1950 to 1953. A war that, despite its profound impact, remains shadowed in our collective memory. This division set the stage for a war that would change the face of the Korean peninsula forever. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel, marking the beginning of the Korean War. The dawn of the Korean War was marked by a swift and audacious invasion from the north. The North Korean forces, equipped with Soviet tanks and artillery, plunged southwards in a surprise offensive that sent shockwaves across the globe. The world watched in disbelief as the well-organized troops from the north overran their southern counterparts, capturing Seoul, the capital of South Korea, within just 3 days. This sudden aggression caught the international community off guard. However, it didn't take long for the United Nations to respond. With the backing of the United States, the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for military intervention. American forces under the UN banner were soon dispatched to the Korean peninsula to stem the North Korean advance. The scale of the war had escalated, pulling in international players and turning the Korean peninsula into a battlefield. By September 1950, the war had taken a dramatic turn with the successful Incheon landing by UN forces. This audacious amphibious assault, led by General Douglas MacArthur, marked a pivotal moment in the conflict. The United Nations forces, primarily composed of American troops, managed to push back the North Korean army, regaining control of Seoul, the South Korean capital. But the tides of war are ever-changing. Just as it seemed the UN forces were gaining the upper hand, China entered the fray. Their involvement tipped the balance once more, leading to a series of brutal battles and territorial exchanges that would define the conflict. The back-and-forth nature of the war had a devastating impact on the Korean peninsula. Towns and cities were destroyed and rebuilt, only to be destroyed again. The human cost was immense, with countless lives lost and families torn apart. As the war raged on, the Korean peninsula was left in ruins, its people caught in the crossfire of a global power struggle. On July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed, effectively ending the Korean War, but not without leaving a lasting impact. The armistice was more than just a ceasefire. It was a poignant moment that drew a line in the sand, splitting the Korean peninsula into two halves, north and south. The agreement culminated in the creation of a 2.5-mile-wide buffer zone, known as the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. This strip of land, straddling the 38th parallel, has become one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world. Yet it's important to note that an armistice is not a peace treaty. It's a suspension of hostilities, a pause in the fight, not a resolution. And so, the tension between North and South Korea has remained a constant, a silent undercurrent in the ebb and flow of world politics. The Korean War might have ended, but the conflict did not. Its legacy is far-reaching. The war was a key event in the early stages of the Cold War, a struggle between communism and democracy that spanned the globe. It set the stage for future conflicts and power dynamics, and introduced a new kind of warfare, one not of conquest, but of containment. Today, the effects of the Korean War are still felt. North and South Korea remain separate entities, each with its own unique path of development. The DMZ, a stark symbol of division, is a constant reminder of a war that ended, yet somehow continues. Moreover, the war has shaped the geopolitical landscape of East Asia. It has influenced relationships, alliances, and policies, creating a ripple effect that has touched every corner of the globe. The Korean War, in many ways, helped to shape the world as we know it today. The Korean War, while often overlooked, remains a significant chapter in world history, its effects still reverberating today. So let's not forget it. Instead, let's strive to understand it, to learn from it, and to remember the lessons it has taught us.